Hi guys, Mrs. Homan here with another science video. So today I'm going to explain how to complete our food web lab. So let's go through the instructions first. First, you're going to select one ecosystem listed. So here I have the tundra food web. This is something that you guys do not have the option of. You have some other options. So today I'm going to be using this tundra food web to complete my food web. Next, on your paper, you're going to make sure each organism is labeled with the name of the organism. Clearly show the flow of energy between the organisms using arrows. Label each organism appropriately as a producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, or quaternary consumer. Make sure that you include the sun and that your food web is clear and easy to read, okay? So, in order to complete this food web, the first thing I'm going to do is identify my producers. So, there's two ways to tell your producers. First, just look through and identify any plants that you notice. So here I know algae, grass, and lichens are producers. Additionally, if you see something in this side that is not on this side, like plankton, that is a clue to you that that is a producer. So, now that I've highlighted all the producers, that means everything else is a consumer. So, now that I'm done with that, I'm going to move on to my next sheet of paper. So my first step of drawing my food web, I'm going to write the sun at the very bottom. The sun is where all the energy on Earth comes from, which means that's where all of the producers get their energy. So I put the sun on the bottom. Next, I'm going to take all of the producers that I identified here, and I'm going to write them in a row along the bottom. So I have grass, lichen, plankton, and algae. Okay? Next, I'm going to draw or write in no particular order all of my consumers, okay? Since I haven't drawn the food web yet, there's no way for me to know where I should put any of these, so I'm just going to draw them in no particular order. Okay, so those are all of my consumers on this list, okay? So now, what I'm going to do is follow the list, and I'm going to draw an arrow from what they eat to the organism. So I'm going to start right here at the top of my list. Arctic wolves get their energy from caribou, Arctic foxes, and lemmings. So, I'm going to go over here and draw an arrow from Arctic foxes to Arctic wolves, from caribou to Arctic wolves, and from lemmings to Arctic wolves. And now, I'm done with that one. Next, polar bears eat Arctic foxes and seals. So here I'm going to put an arrow from seals to the polar bears and Arctic foxes to the polar bears. Seals eat fish. So here seals get their energy from fish. Remember, you always put your arrow from the organism getting eaten to the organism eating, to the consumer. Remember, the arrow represents the energy. Where is the energy going? You get energy from what you eat, okay? So the energy goes from that thing to you. So next, fish eat plankton and algae. So here's plankton, algae. Next, owls eat Arctic foxes, lemmings, and hares. So, now notice this arrow goes down here. That's okay. That's just because of the location where I wrote Arctic foxes. Again, the arrows don't always have to go up. Sometimes they can go to the side or down, depending on what is eating what, okay? So the owl eats the Arctic fox, therefore the arrow goes down from Arctic fox to owls. And I'm missing lemmings. So the lemmings, I'm gonna do that. Now it's okay that these crossed, these, especially the more organisms you get in a food web, the messier it gets. So that's okay. Next, I have hares eat lichens and grass. So here's our grass and our lichens. Next, brown bears eat grass, lemmings, hares, and groundhogs. So brown bears eat grass, lemmings, hares, so this one's going to go, and groundhogs. Next, Arctic foxes eat lemmings and groundhogs. So Arctic foxes eat lemmings and groundhogs. And then last, lemmings, caribou, and groundhogs all eat grass. So I'm going to draw lemmings, groundhogs, and caribou. Okay? And then the last thing I'm going to do is show that the grass, lichens, plankton, and algae get their energy from the sun. So, now my web is complete. Now, the last step before we have completely finished our food web is to label each organism as a producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, or quaternary consumer. So, I'm going to be using these codes here just so that I don't have to write these long words all over my food web. So, the producers, that's everything that gets its energy from the sun. So, everything that has an arrow pointing from the sun to it is a producer. So, I'm going to put a P next to all of those. Okay? Next, I have my primary consumers. Those are everything that eats a producer. So, brown bears, lemmings, groundhogs, caribou, and hares all eat grass. So I'm going to put a C1 next to every one that eats grass. Okay? Next, what eats lichens? Well, hares, but I already put the C1 there, so we're good there. Fish eat plankton and algae, so there we're done. So, that is all of our primary consumers. Now, secondary consumers are anything that eats a primary consumer. So, let's start by the brown bears. Nothing eats a brown bear, so we're good there. Now, brown bears eat lemmings, so it is a C1 and a C2. Arctic foxes eat lemmings as well, so they're a C2. And owls, okay? Groundhogs are eaten by brown bears. We've already got the C2 there. And Arctic foxes. The caribou, the Arctic wolves eat the caribou. Owls eat the hares. Oh, and seals eat the fish. Okay, and next I have my C3, my tertiary consumers. That's anything that eats a secondary consumer. So, polar bears eat seals and Arctic foxes, which are both C2, so that makes them a C3. And I think that is it. Okay, so now I am done with my food web. And I almost forgot my last step. I'm going to label this. This is my Tundra food web. Okay, and then just make sure that you go back and double check, because I already see I missed one of these. The Arctic wolves are also a C3 because we have our C1, C2, C3. So make sure that you go back and double check these before you submit. Last thing I want to mention is that this particular food web does not have a C4 or a quaternary consumer. It does have two C3s. Not all food webs will have those C3s and C4s. Remember, as the energy moves up the food web, up that food pyramid, less and less energy is available. So we're not going to have C3s and C4s very common. So if your food web does not have a C3 or a C4, that's okay. Not every food web has a C3 or a C4. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.